The recording. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you again. I was telling our speakers that I'm calling in today from sunny Miami, Florida, where I was invited down to speak on a panel today about the work of the fellowship at our consortium member school, St. Thomas University. So I'm kind of riding a high from that. It was a really great conversation. And it was launched by Mr. Ben Crump. So they have their law school is named after him. And I had the honor of meeting him earlier today. So it was a very powerful, moving day for me. I got to spend some time with past fellows, which is always a good experience to be able to physically share space with y'all. So I say that not to rub it in that I'm in Miami, but to let y'all know that as part of the fellowship, these opportunities are continuously available to you. And I'll be sure to keep you apprised of how you might be able to avail of them going forward. Related, if you have not yet joined the Discord server, please do so. I have been sharing a fair bit of information on there about different current events of relevance and different points of interest for your consideration as you choose your research assignment. So I can drop that back into the chat for you to be aware of. Let me just pull that up. Sorry. Please excuse the delay. Yeah, but I'm actually calling in from a law library today. I feel like I'm one of you. It's very fun, very novel. So a few reminders. We have our deadline of next Friday for your press release assignments. So please get those into me by next Friday, close of business. Those instructions have been disseminated previously and are also in the shared Google folder. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns about what is expected for that submission, don't hesitate to reach out. It is, again, just a 500 word, not 500 page, that'd be a whole nother kind of assignment, 500 word blurb about the work that you are doing, your goals for joining the consortium, really just announcing your work within this project. It should be pretty short, succinct, really just hitting the top lines. We want that to share across additional audiences to make sure they are aware of the fellowship, as well as to highlight your accomplishments and your role within it. Of our few participants today, does anyone have any questions about the press release assignment? Okay. Well, if and when they arise, don't hesitate to reach out. And then to help in thinking through your research assignments, one of our first speakers for the fellowship series this semester, we have two representatives from the International Association of Chiefs of Police. So I am honored to be joined today by Dana Bonell and Jennifer Stiles. And in addition to giving you some inspiration around work that y'all as student researchers can be, I also want to acknowledge the strong work of IACP in advancing evidence-based collaborative policing reform efforts, which is wholly in keeping with the goals of the consortium, particularly the fellowship program. So the IACP is, my computer is quite slow today. It is the world's largest and most influential professional association for police leaders, committed to advancing the safety of communities worldwide. They have over 33,000 members in over 170 countries and are recognized in global policing, committed to advancing safer communities through thoughtful, progressive police leadership. They've been around since 1893, serving communities by speaking out on behalf of law enforcement and advancing leadership and professionalism in policing worldwide. They're really at the forefront of this work and have done a great job of aggregating a lot of different organizations and the thought leadership that they have been putting out, and have a wealth of resources that I would strongly encourage you to tap into as you're determining the direction in which you take your individual work. So as I mentioned today, we have Dana, who is a project manager in the programs division of IACP, where she's worked on projects related to enhancing police response and interactions with individuals with mental health conditions, IDD, and dementia. Additionally, Ms. Bonnell has worked on projects related to gender-based violence, substance use, and officer safety and wellness. Prior to joining the IACP, Ms. Bonnell worked as an assertive community treatment team manager for Pathways to Housing in DC, where she coordinated a multidisciplinary team to provide intensive and holistic care in a community setting for individuals with severe mental health conditions or co-occurring IDD diagnosis with a history of chronic homelessness. Dana completed her master's degree in justice and public policy from American University and bachelor's degree in forensic psychology with a minor in criminal justice from the University of New Haven in West Haven, Connecticut. Jennifer Stiles is a program manager at IACP, specializing in community police engagement, officer safety and wellness, pretrial justice, and tribal and smaller agency issues. She currently oversees IACP's portfolio of officer safety and wellness work, to include the Officer Safety and Wellness Conference, the National Consortium on Prevention of Law Enforcement Suicide, Law Enforcement Resilience Training Program, and the Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act Training and Technical Assistance Program. Prior to joining the IACP, Ms. Stiles spent 5 years working in emergency preparedness and volunteer management training. She's currently a Bloomberg American Health Initiative Fellow at the Johns Hopkins University Bloomberg School of Public Health. I am so honored to have both of you with us today, and hand the floor to you.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am excited to be here. Let me pull up my PowerPoint because it keeps things organized as soon as I select the right buttons. All right. As Jesselyn said, we are from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, and I am here to talk primarily about our One Mind campaign. But before we hop into that, I have some information about, that's me, the International Association of Chiefs of Police as a whole. As Jesselyn mentioned, we are a not-for-profit association-based organization, and we're headquartered in Alexandria, Virginia. And we were founded in 1893. For a fun fact, our first conference or meeting was held at the Chicago World Fair in 1893. Also, as mentioned, our vision is similar to our mission, in that we hope to shape the future of policing through our dedication to advancement through advocacy, research, outreach, and education. Of our 33,000 members, we have various types. We aren't just police chiefs, despite our name. We have all levels of law enforcement, so federal, state, local, tribal, campus, all of the types, as well as all levels of law enforcement can be members. And then we also offer membership to university professors and students, and private sector leaders that are connected to the criminal justice field in some way. So everybody can join. The link for our membership is there. I will also provide a bunch of links at the bottom once I get to the end. I'll put a bunch of links in the chat for you. So IACP has a number of different focuses. First, we focus on our innovation. So we regularly work to advocate on behalf of law enforcement with community stakeholders, legislators, and other groups to advance and create new policies related to law enforcement. We focus on emerging issues with our advocacy, as well as a lot of our program work. So we have developed communication tools designed to break down the critical topics and outline how to handle important conversations within agencies, communities, and the media. Some of our focuses have included evidence-based practices, reducing crime in the digital world, firearm violence, and highway safety, as well as issues related to mental health. As mentioned, with our members in over 170 countries, we have a very global voice. We also have offices across the world. Our newest one is in Dubai, right? That's Dubai. Yes. So we take an international perspective on all of our work. Our grant work tends to be a little more domestic focused, but we have a global department that does a lot of various works in many different countries. So we try to address the issues that are faced at a global level. We also focus on the advancement of the policing profession through leadership. We have a number of programs that are designed to foster strong leadership, both in current and future leaders, which is why we have a lot of membership that are on the line officers, sergeant levels, and everything there. We have training courses that focus on this as well, including our first line leadership training, leadership in policing, police organizations, and our Women in the Leadership Institute. We focus as well on policy and operations. So we offer a number of training related to policy and operations, as well as resources around policy, including model policies, consideration documents, and consideration documents. Currently we have policies in over 130 different key issues for law enforcement. Some of those are behind our membership wall, so only members can access that information, but there are a number that are available to the public. We also offer professional services, which includes management studies for agencies, executive searches for new chiefs and new executives for departments, as well as assessment centers for building tools for promotions and helping with your candidate pool. And then we also offer promotional exams to help get the strongest leaders in your agencies. Connection is a very important part for IACP. We focus on global leaders, since we have a global community. It's a powerful network that we can interact with at our conferences. We regularly have representatives from around 80 countries. Members also receive a lot of regular updates and information. We provide the Lead, which is a daily newsletter, providing briefs from all over the world. We do IACP Monthly, which provides updates on training, new resources, events, and other key pieces of information for the field. Announcements also come regularly, which helps the field stay on top of key legislative updates and major events. And then we have an extensive social media network. We are the publishers of Police Chief Magazine, which circulates to, I did not write this number down. I believe it's 35,000 is our circulation for this magazine. It is written by the field, so it offers insights into challenges, innovations, and best practices for the field and other experts. And anyone can sign up for that. We also have IACP Net, which is a professional service. It is an additional membership that allows for the sharing of policies, tools, and training opportunities across different agencies. Our newest addition is IACP Learn, which is our learning management system. Allows for all of our webinars and other webinars that we find to be hosted, as well as self-paced training that is accessible to members. And some of it's accessible to the public as well. IACP also has a number of events, working groups, and projects and programs. So for events. Our largest one is by far the IACP Annual Conference and Exposition. We do this yearly. We've had one every year since 1893, with the exception of 2020 and 2021. These conferences generally have an attendance of about 18,000, with delegates from around 80 countries, and we have over 650 exhibitors and over 250 workshops from the field. We do our annual conference on drugs, alcohol, and impaired driving, otherwise known as DAID. It's one of our smaller, in quotation marks, events. We generally have about 1,200 attendees for this event, and it also features exhibitors and workshops from around the world. Our Officer Safety and Wellness, should be conference now, the name has changed, focuses on connecting agencies that are focused on wellness and building out the experts and resources that are available for the field in supporting officers' mental health and suicide awareness, as well as peer support, physical fitness, sleep and stress. Then we have our policy council, which focuses on some of our most engaged members. I will speak a little bit about our policy councils and everything in a minute, but this is their mid-year meeting. And our technology conference focuses on all of the upcoming technology and changes that police are dealing with in the field. As I mentioned, our policy councils and committees, these are groups that meet during our policy council mid-years. We have committees, sections, and divisions. They're broken up. Some of them, you can see they're broken up there on the screen. They include subject matter experts, as well as special interest groups. Some of them include, we have 54 in total. To name a few, we have the Juvenile Justice and Child Protection Committee, the Victim Services Committee, Patrol and Tactical Committee, as well as a Community Policing. I don't have Community Policing one, that's not accurate. Community Policing section. For our programs, we're going to focus today. We have many programs that are almost across our work. Today, we'll focus on the One Mind campaign, which is one of the projects that I oversee. One Mind campaign focuses on successful interactions between law enforcement and individuals with mental health conditions. And it's called the One Mind campaign because we want to unite local communities, law enforcement agencies, and mental health organizations so that the three become of one mind. It was initially launched as a IACP President Initiative in 2016, and it was expanded in 2019 to include training and technical assistance and intellectual and developmental disabilities. In 2020, we crossed the mark of over 550 agencies have taken the pledge worldwide, and today we have over 650. The pledge focuses on three main components. First is partnership. One of the requirements is to establish a clearly defined and sustainable partnership with one or more community health organization. We don't require this to be a formally written agreement, but we do ask that it is clear and agreed on enough to be able to be described. We also require that a department develop and implement a policy addressing law enforcement response to individuals with mental health conditions, or they update an existing policy. For training, it is required that 100% of all sworn officers be trained in mental health response or awareness. To do that, we require that 20% be trained in CIT, which is Crisis Intervention Training, CRIT, which is a brand new off-the-shelf training that focuses, it's called Crisis Response, Intervention, and Training, focuses on the behaviors that officers are going to see, or any other equivalent 40-hour training. And then the remaining 80% of the department, the sworn officers or any selected non-sworn staff, should be trained in mental health first aid or equivalent. And that training focuses more on being able to have emotional awareness conversations and conversations around mental health, and less focused on being able to recognize the symptoms and behaviors. As I said, in 2019, we expanded the One Mind campaign to include the One Mind initiative. And this becomes a national program to include tools and resources and other technical assistance to promote law enforcement and mental health organization partnerships. We provide expert assistance to enhance law enforcement-based responses, as I said, to also include intellectual and developmental disabilities. We often partner with the ARC of the United States to help support that initiative. These are some of the initiatives that some of the resources that the One Mind initiative provides. We have a very extensive online library of resources that is fully available. I can drop links to it. We also have been involved in BJA, the Bureau of Justice Assistance Police Mental Health Collaboration Toolkit. This toolkit provides information on building a collaboration from inception to all the way through. So how you're building responses, how you work through leadership to build supports, and how you work everything into it to your day-to-day as part of your agency. Then we also focus the Police Mental Health Toolkit, Collaboration Toolkit also talks about police response to individuals experiencing homelessness, as well as some about substance abuse. We also focus on providing peer-to-peer learning opportunities with the law enforcement mental health learning sites. These are sites that have been selected by the Bureau of Justice Assistance to provide a more in-depth look of the work. So there are 12 agencies across the country. They're all law enforcement departments that specialize in various aspects of mental health response, that agencies looking for support and help in building their own responses can reach out to, ask questions, and they can set up sometimes in-person peer-to-peer learning opportunities or virtual learning opportunities. We also provide a monthly One Mind newsletter, which is bi-monthly, that focuses on various training opportunities, different resources that have come available, and other areas of interest for the pledge sites. We also include web-based spotlight series, which focuses on different sites and things that they are doing as part of the One Mind campaign. Often it includes building their response processes, like CIT teams or co-responder teams. We'll also provide some customized technical assistance, which it usually consists of a site reaching out and asking for support. We will connect with them and help them work through any questions they have or any support that they need. We also will connect them to IACP's CRITAC, which is a project that we have that will basically do that on a much higher, much more extensive level. They will provide access to further resources and experts to help agencies build what they need. And I went through that a lot faster than I expected to. So, questions? Feel free to yes.
Yeah, I'm curious. So when was the One Mind campaign launched?
It was launched in 2016.
Okay, and what metrics for success have you seen in that time period?
So since its launch, we have 650 agencies pledged worldwide. Primarily, those are all based in the US. There are some Canadian and a couple other international sites. We have seen almost 200 of those agencies complete the pledge. So that they have been able to demonstrate that they have trained 100% of their officers in mental health response and awareness, as well as updating all of their policies and establishing their partnerships. We have also heard a lot of anecdotal successes. So, for example, IACP conference last year, we heard a lot of positive things being said across the conference. I heard it individually 4 times in various settings. Officers talking about the success of the One Mind campaign, how much it has supported their agencies. And one of the biggest things that we hear through completion letters and through emails and everything is how it helps build their relationships with communities, because it is a very easy way to demonstrate commitment. We provide, when an agency pledges, we provide some press packages, so some sample social media, and sample press templates, as well as some like fact sheets and things like that that can be used to promote the agency's involvement in the One Mind campaign. So it's a really easy way to show your commitment to the community about responding with mental health conditions and intellectual and developmental disabilities. And then the work that you can go into it, you can promote it throughout. So talking about your partnerships, talking about the training that's being done. And so we've heard a lot about how it's built the relationship with the community, which is one of the best things that we've heard.
I think I might add in, based on just kind of following up on that question of sort of the metrics of success that we've seen. I think there's been a lot of standardization of training in the years since it started. I think, police departments, communities for a long time wanted this kind of responsive training, that crisis response, but there was not a lot of consistency in the way it was delivered. So I think that this initiative and others like it have really been helpful in kind of helping the field understand what are like the really evidence-based models for training, and how can they implement those in a way. And we have so many agencies that have done it, that includes small agencies. Like we have, I think a very large percentage of police departments are, under serving populations of under 25,000. They might have like 10 officers, and that looks very different than the way that, Los Angeles Police Department is going to deploy their crisis response team. So I think the network of these agencies has given a lot of insights into how to adapt these different models to make them work for the communities. Because that's one thing I think one of our main IACP beliefs is that, there's no one way to do any of these things, but we can learn a lot from the evidence and from our cohort in the field about kind of how we can make adaptations that are still going to work for these individual communities.
I love that. Andy, I saw your hand raised.
Thank you. I guess my question is, there may not have been enough time for the One Mind campaign to have established a measurement for this, but I know some cities have experimented with bringing non-sworn officers onto the department solely as a crisis response team. And they've established policies of which calls police officers go to and which calls will first be attended by the crisis response team. And I don't know anything about the results of that. I'm just curious if you guys have any measurement or statistics on that, and what your thoughts might be on that practice. Thank you.
So we don't have any statistics or measurements of it. It's a fairly new practice that we are seeing grow. We've been doing some research into it. One Mind campaign hasn't done too much with it. It's been focused primarily on departments itself. Though it does include them in the training requirements. IACP's stance has generally been a co-responder model when it comes to responding to mental health. And there are some resources online for that piece as well. And Jennifer, if you have anything to add, please do.
Yeah, I would just kind of back. I think that I know that we hear very much that the field is interested in kind of learning about all the different models of doing that. We're still sort of, I think, getting a better understanding. I don't think the evidence base is there for any one of these models, but I think there's a lot of really interesting, innovative things happening. I think, you know, we do see some communities that are going for starting with those sort of more non-law enforcement folks. Like Dana said, we're seeing a big interest in co-responder models, and that's with crisis response, but there's a lot of interesting co-responders happening with some substance abuse issues as well. So it's something I think we're all really learning about and trying to start collecting data. I think, as mentioned at the beginning, we're really trying. Law enforcement was not ahead of the game in research for a long time, and I think is really starting to understand the value of working with universities and trying to build up that research database for what works.
Thank you.
Jaden.
Hey, thank you so much for the presentation, Dana. It's really good. And I'll just caveat that I'm actually walking back home right now, so I hope I hope I'm audible. I hope there's not too much background noise. But
Very well.
okay, great. Well, my question was, and it's kind of a question, also kind of an observation, is that I would assume that y'all are at IACP or just in the way that y'all are relating on these issues, particularly like I was interested how you brought up, you know, officer safety as a concern along with others that you all, you know, advocate for. And it just sounded to me like maybe y'all at IACP may have been received well or received better than maybe other groups that are advocating on this issue because of sort of wanting to address it from sort of both perspectives. So I guess, have you seen that play out? Like, have you all seen that, you know, that the sort of collaboration with law enforcement has made law enforcement more receptive in, you know, working along with y'all?
Jump in. That's such an interesting point. That's one of my sort of real interest areas is how we can think about, you know, the alignment of like community mental health and officer mental health, because they are, you know, there's only like one mind, right? Like, as we said, that's all, everyone thinks and processes things in the same essential ways. So I think there is a lot of benefit in talking about both issues. I do think that, you know, sometimes there is sort of an officer wellness framing component when we talk about some of these crisis response programs with officers. You know, that's sort of, you have to speak in a language people understand to get them to go along with new ideas, I think, in any profession, right? But I think that connection has been really interesting to think about. You know, I think there's been a lot of growth because for a long time, police wouldn't talk at all about mental health for themselves. You know, they understood kind of the need to respond in the community, but officers' wellness themselves wasn't really a conversation that anybody wanted to bring up. So I think that both the officer side and the community side have come a long way in understanding these issues and how they impact everyone's really day-to-day life in the community. So I would like to see them a little more integrated. That's sort of my own Jennifer Stiles vision, that there's ways that we could be working with both populations together. But for the most part, I think that they're both growing in their own ways right now, that officer and that community side.
I will also add, I mentioned it already a little bit, IACP was very involved in the development of the CRIT curriculum, which is a 40-hour mental health response curriculum. But it does include, I believe it's a 2-hour module on officer mental health. And it's a very early module in the 40 hours, if you follow the matrix, as a way of highlighting the need to focus there as well as a mental health response.
That's awesome. Thank y'all.
Of course.
Have y'all heard anything from departments or individuals who are reluctant or unwilling to take the campaign? And if so, what is their argument?
I have not in the time that I have been working on the campaign. I suspect that that may have been more prevalent when it was launched, but it hasn't been in the time that I have been working on it.
I don't think anyone has been, resistant to it. I think that, sometimes we do have, especially our smaller agencies that may have like capacity issues or kind of feel like it's a difficult promise to to train 100% of your officers. So, especially if you have a very large department, it could be hard for some of our very large ones to get through everybody. We have, I think there's about 30,000 people in NYPD. So when you think about some of the logistics of that, I think especially early on, kind of figuring out what that looks like. But I think everyone understands the value. I don't feel like there are police departments that are really against the concept of it. It's more just sort of the logistical pieces that may have made, some agencies not sign up or just not been aware of it. I think too, we've really worked on the promotion of it. But those are probably the bigger things that have come up.
Jennifer, I'm really grateful that you flagged the promotion component because I think that is one of the areas where I was hoping that our fellows might be of value to y'all, recognizing the geographic diversity that they represent with their individual law schools, as well as some of the home communities that they represent. And I guess I'm wondering if you see that as a potential value, and to hear from our law students on if this is something that you would be interested and willing to support in the dissemination of, in reaching out with the support, obviously, of your law school. Can't have anyone going rogue and just reaching out to the local policing departments on their own, but in trying to create additional connections, because one of the areas that I found most, well, I find it all very interesting, but the fact that campus police are also actively encouraged to take the One Mind campaign. And so I recognize that campus police are not on all of your campuses, but that could be an immediate value added to at least share this with the head of the campus safety team, make them aware of it and see if it might be of interest and value to them. So there's not really a question there, but just wanted to flag that as a potential connection and hear from maybe Dana and Jennifer on if and how that might be valuable, and from our students on if that would be something you would be willing to undertake and what your action plan for implementation might be.
We would love it. We actually just had fairly recently released, and again, I'll drop it in the chat, a One Mind overview flyer, which focuses on the promotion piece of it, about why agencies can take the pledge, how it's beneficial, and how they go about doing so. So it makes it a very easy, drop it off, here's all of your information. So we have that very handy. To jump off the community, the campus police officer piece, and police departments, we hear from the campus departments a lot that it's important because they deal with mental health so much, especially from students. It's a age that a lot of students are dealing with mental health, and B, there are a lot of stress. So it's been very useful for university police to be able to learn more about mental health and respond accordingly.
Let me jump in, just kind of thinking about the value of this. If you're thinking about talking to, your campus police departments, one of the things that I think is helpful is that, once we have that connection with them, IACP's team can really help kind of figure out the logistics. Again, like I said, one of the challenges really kind of figuring out how to get the training, how to know it's the right training. So, once we make those connections, our team is really able to help with helping thinking through what's going to make it work for those agencies. Dana mentioned it briefly, but I dropped the link in the chat too. IACP actually has an off-the-shelf crisis response training. So it's linked there too. It's just released last fall, and something we're really excited about, because for a long time, you had to go through an agency or there were a lot of different training options out there. Again, not all of them necessarily vetted as much as you might like, but this is a training that is available for any departments to use. So we have a lot of these resources and also connections to other agencies that do have those evidence-based trainings that we can help connect departments with.
Jaden.
Yeah, to that point, Jesselyn, I think I mentioned, actually, I'm pretty sure I mentioned this to you, Jesselyn, but just for everyone else's awareness, I'm actually a member of the police advisory board of my city, the city of Raleigh. So it's interesting. I almost feel like everything that I hear throughout this, I just want to ask, the rest of the board when I get on board to kind of see, hey, are we on board with these things, right? Like, are we putting these things in front of our officers to make sure that that they're a part of this very valuable resource. So yeah, that's very interesting. That and to your point, Jesselyn, that's something that I'd like to kind of find out from our locality if that's something that we're on board with.
I mean, we're very excited with our new fancy map tool. Raleigh, North Carolina, right? I'm assuming.
That's correct.
Let's take a look. Well, let's see who we have. We do, and Raleigh Police Department, the department, not necessarily the university, completed in 2020.
Awesome. Great to hear.
We don't necessarily continue to make sure that a department has maintained that training because there is so much turnover. So we would greatly support if it was looking in to see whether or not they have maintained. That demonstrates all of the that link has all of these sites that are pledged or completed. I can drop that in the chat as well as soon as I find it.
I love a mapping tool. We launched one on our website recently too, and I find them so wildly valuable. It's great to
We're
have
very
that visual representation, right? Andy, I saw your hand.
Yeah, thank you again. Excuse me. I do have a question going back to something that Jesselyn mentioned, which was measures of effectiveness. And I understand clearly one measure that the IACP has is, hey, how many departments can we get on board with this? And that makes perfect sense to me. Do departments themselves, or does the IACP measure the effectiveness of the program once it's implemented in any way? And I have no idea what that would look like, but I am kind of curious. I mean, it's one thing to get the department to the point where, okay, we've met the standard now, we have our officers who are trained. How could we measure whether it's working in the community or not? And just if you have any thoughts on that.
That greatly depends on the department and their ability for data capturing. Every department has very different systems. So it's a point of great interest across a lot of research areas. But it is a spot that is a little hard because of that data tracking piece and the different systems that are used.
About that, IACP recently started. We have a Center for Police Research. We were working with the University of Cincinnati, and we recently started working with some internal researchers from, I think it's Temple University. So really trying to look at a lot of our projects and think about opportunities like that for continued evaluation. So I think that's something we've had some initial conversations about. We really haven't done that kind of evaluation yet, but we're kind of pitching ideas right now for things that might be good research studies. So it's always helpful to hear from folks like you who think you would also be able to use that data. So we can certainly talk more to our team there and see if there are some thoughts on that. Because that's all kind of an emerging research area right now that we're interested in.
And Andy, I think that is some great future casting for our subsequent speakers, because next week we're going to be hearing from folks, I believe it's at RTI. They'll be talking about this topic, but from a slightly different perspective, and looking at the community perceptions of the effectiveness of policing. So I think that is an important component to take into this, that while it is obviously important to determine whether or not the police department feel that their commitment to a campaign or to any reform or change process is working, it's also hugely important to account for whether or not the community notice a difference, and if and how it impacts their feelings of safety and security. So we'll hear more from them. Obviously, their review is not focused on implementation of additional training around behavioral or mental health, but I think it's more broadly cast. But we'll hear more about that from them on Tuesday. Derek.
I thank you both. I was just curious on how you reach out to all the police departments and universities. Like, I'm interested. I just looked on the map for the Philadelphia area, and I didn't see a lot of departments. So I'm happy to drop off at my university and with the local departments here in Philadelphia. But I was just curious, do you do like an annual, like across the whole country? Do you reach out to all these organizations? Because I'm a little concerned why Philadelphia doesn't have a lot of IACP representation or involvement. So
our primary pushes has been through social media for this, as well as through our member networks. I don't know much about individual department research. Do you, Jennifer, or outreach?
I don't know directly. I mean, we can certainly sort of send you some information if it's helpful, or send it through Jesslyn, some sort of promotional materials that might be helpful to make those reach outs. I think a lot of the outreach that we've done has been through some of the things Dana mentioned at the beginning. We talk to our committees and our sections. We talk to at our annual conferences about it. A lot of opportunities like that to promote it. We also have a very large network of programs on all sorts of topics. So our IACP folks are regularly out in the field talking about all kinds of things. So we trying to use those opportunities and those connections. And I'm sure we're working with Philadelphia on some of those things. I can't speak to exact details, but I know there are many things they are involved in with us. They may just not have signed up for that one.
thank you.
Just kind of following with, if anybody's interested in other topics, as we do many, many things at IACP, we were just kind of wanted to focus on One Mind today, because I think that I know that was an interest of all of yours, but we do a lot of work around community police engagement. I'll actually drop a link in the chat too, because I think it might be of interest to you. We've really sort of taken some time to think about, what does community police engagement mean in the sort of post 2020 environment, and we have a lot of policies that the agency has actually put out publicly to help departments think about the ways they approach it. And so that's an area we've been doing a lot of work in. Human trafficking, we do victim services. So if there's ever any other topics that you all individually, it sounds like you have research projects, but if there's projects that you're looking for resources on, we're always happy to talk with folks and sort of direct you to resources we have or know of through our networks. So again, just kind of talking about this today, but always happy to talk with you all about some of the other resources that we have, down the road.
I will just further amplify, if there is a new interest area or a current event that comes up on my radar related to anything policing, the IACP website is my first point of call to see what has been released about it, where the research stands, what some of the policies might be that can help in just shaping my understanding. So I want to express just gratitude for that as a compendium of resources. It's been very valuable. And I think part of my ask for highlighting One Mind was, one, gratitude for y'all for putting this forward. And I think you hosted office hours earlier this year that I found really interesting and wanted to attempt to encourage this as an research assignment or partnership opportunity for our fellows. But also last semester, there was a great deal of interest in the launch of the 988 number as an alternative to law enforcement, and ensuring that there was a greater awareness around other folks that can respond to people experiencing crisis. And so we heard from a representative from SAMHSA that talked us through the logistics of 988 and the value of that as a resource. And so I thought it would be valuable for us to hear about the different avenues that can be taken. So I see this as law enforcement can be dedicated to further strengthening their understanding of this issue through committing to the One Mind campaign and additional training and capacity building internally. And then with 988, we have this alternative response. So for individuals who feel that calling 911 is no longer appropriate or they do not want to engage, regardless of whether or not the campaign has been taken in their community, they have an alternate recourse to also ensure that they are in receipt of appropriate resources. So I think that this is just a little bit of the inside baseball of how my brain works in trying to get all of the different experts connected and provide these resources to the students. Derek.
Hi again, sorry. I know Jaden mentioned like this interesting dynamic of the internal. So like obviously that we're talking about like external police interaction with the community, but like is this One Mind campaign engaged in any sort of like in addition to the training, obviously, but like from what I'm familiar with, like there's been some talk about getting some more counselors, psychologists like in police agencies. Like is this campaign like working in that or like familiar with that and doing anything in that front?
Definitely familiar with it. One Mind doesn't necessarily focus on that, but I will let Jennifer speak to that because that is the officer safety and wellness.
Yeah, I think there's some really interesting things that are happening in that front right now. Just as I said, it's a kind of a time of innovation for all of these things and trying to figure out what works. But we are seeing departments that do have, integrated like social workers. That's one that's really interesting to me, that they might have a social worker who's responding to calls either with the officers or just on, if they get a call that they know is more appropriate for someone with like a social work background, they're going to respond to that. There are, I think with embedded counselors, most of what we see is folks who are counseling officers themselves. I don't think we haven't seen as much of like a sort of a staff person counselor who's going out to calls, but that's not to say it doesn't exist out there somewhere. I think a lot of times those folks are actually, no, now that I think about it, I think there are some that are doing that. So it kind of depends. There's a lot of new models that are emerging for this. It just sort of depends on how they go, but there are, they might partner with like their public health department to have those people not necessarily on staff, but readily available to go out and respond, either with or without officers, sort of depending on how they've set it up.
Any other questions or anything?
I had another question. I don't know if you can speak to any of the modules just for our research sake. That One Mind kind of, you mentioned some specifics of like some of the training stuff, but just, I don't know, any notable ones or things that you may find like maybe like I don't want to say most helpful, but maybe like I don't know, maybe just notable ones for us and our research.
So the modules training is through the CRIT training. It isn't, One Mind isn't specific there. I was involved in the development of CRIT, so.
Yeah, I think, Dana, if you could just give maybe kind of an overview. So One Mind, focuses on a few different crisis response traits. It's not saying there's one you have to use, right? There's a couple different ones that you can use, but I think the CRIT is a good example. Maybe Dana, you could just give some like high level, some of the topics that are in there. Just
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna end the slideshow because it's not necessary to have going right now, and it will allow me to move to different screens. So crits, and the slideshow, so I can actually move around the two different screens. So CRIT is a 40-hour training that focuses on mental health response, but it focuses on, so CIT, which is its forerunner, focuses on the diagnostic criteria around mental health. CRIT focuses on the symptoms and behaviors that officers are likely to see, and less focus on the diagnostic criteria because officers don't diagnose. There are a total of 18 modules in CRIT that start with focus on perceptions and attitudes around behavioral health and disabilities, prioritizing, as I said, officer mental health and wellness. We also talk about just understanding mental health conditions, substance abuse disorders, trauma and post-traumatic stress disorders, as well as intellectual and developmental disabilities. CRIT is designed to be customizable to different departments. So it includes the inclusion of a family and peer perspective panel where the department would bring in local individuals to speak, as well as site visits. So they would send the officers going through the training to various sites in their communities, including some rehab centers, mental health centers, things that they could actively use as part of their day-to-day work. There is focus on working with individuals with experiencing homelessness, as well as veterans who might be experiencing mental health. And then there is a module focused specifically on suicide. There is additionally 10 hours, 40 hours training. 10 of those hours are scenario-based training. So the last 2 days of the training is very focused on scenarios and acting those out, engaging with the trainers. CRIT is also designed to be trained in a co-trainer model. So you have a officer trainer who can speak cop and do all of those pieces, as well as a clinician trainer. It's also meant for certain modules to be trained from communities. So there is a legal and policy topics where you would bring in one of the district attorneys to talk about the legal side of things. The mental health department should be taught by that clinical representative. Intellectual and developmental disabilities, we would hope that you would bring in some representative there. So if you have a local chapter of the ARC or the Autism Society or other pieces that can speak to that, so that you're getting a very in-depth look of what is happening there. And then this website I will pop into the chat. Actually, so I think the one that Jennifer popped in is the IACP based website. The actual curriculum is hosted on the Informed Policing Responses independent webpage. And all of the materials are there, including all participant guides, PowerPoints, trainer materials, and there are additional products coming out with some videos to help guide how you can build this training and answer questions of who you should be including in these in the training as well. We also encourage that departments that might have a training use CRIT to supplement. You can pick and choose and jump and go use whatever you need to supplement, and if you don't want to use the entirety of CRIT, which is really nice, because one of the barriers that we do here to this type of training is just how long it is. Or if you're bringing in something like CIT or a more extensive a trainer where you're bringing in a trainer to do it, you have to do it in 1 week setting, whereas CRIT you could design however you want and spread that training out, still get the amount of training. One of the benefits of having a fully completed training that you can customize to your department. So we're very excited about CRIT in general. It took a long time to build, so we're excited to see it launched and to see it happening. We also have 2 train the trainers upcoming. Though those have not been scheduled yet. That's through our CRIT project that I am no longer on, but I used to be. So they're doing a lot of work in that front. That's CRIT in a nutshell.
Yeah, and
Thank
I know there's
you.
been a couple questions about research that we did. That was developed with the University of Cincinnati and the Police Research. They just changed their name, and I always forget what their new name is. National Policing Institute, yes. So they really have focused on the research that is out there on these topics to make sure that this was informed by all of the data that we have available right now, and it's something that is going to continue to be a focus for evaluating and figuring out what works.
There is also, since for the interest of research, on the webpage under products or resources, one of the two, there is an extensive literature review into all crisis response models, including crisis response teams, co-responder teams, mobile crisis teams, some non-police based response modules. It is a very extensive literature review, We do have coming out, we're calling it the Chief's Primer, which is a snapshot of those literature reviews, to be a little bit more digestible and a little less academic. Since the literature reviews are very academic, those were led and written by staff at the University of Cincinnati. There's also some information about what law enforcement needs to know about mental health, or what is the difference between mental health and intellectual and developmental disabilities, and some basic information about how responding to intellectual and developmental disabilities. Because that is threaded through the curriculum. In CIT, it's a single module, but intellectual developmental disabilities is addressed across the 40 hours for credit. Other questions on One Mind or Grit? Hard to address them without each other because crit can count as part of that training.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Let me drop a couple more links that I have over here for you guys. And as I find the right documents.
I do have one question, and I apologize if you guys already addressed this. There's a lot of material, so I'm sure you might have already said this, so I apologize. But I was looking at your website and I found like a policy recommendations kind of site. And one of them kind of talked about like drug policy, and that is a little bit further beyond, like you said, that's further beyond what we've been talking about. So do you guys have like a lobbying part of your organization? If so, like how far does it extend? How much of that kind of like policy recommendations like are you making? What kind of stuff does that fall under? Just that kind of scope.
Yeah, I will say, so neither Dana or I work in that division. We do have an advocacy component to the IACP. We have some folks who are involved in legislative advocacy. We are apolitical. We don't take, any party lines at all. But we really listen to the membership. So our membership, Dana kind of gave you the overview. It's 30,000 members, primarily higher level, but we listen to them for what is important to them. But and that's what sort of drives the things that IACP advocates for. But I think that the things we advocate for are more progressive than probably most people realize. So if you do look through some of those policy documents, again, some of them are available, some of them are sort of behind our member wall, but we do have some things that the IACP will advocate for. There's usually like a policy position. Sometimes they put that up on the website too, kind of where IACP stands on things. I don't have would have to dig a little for the link to that, but yeah, we do have an advocacy arm. If that's something you are interested in hearing more about, we could certainly, see if we can connect you with some of those. Again, some of it's sort of on our website, but some of it we might have to talk to other colleagues to get information about.
I will also drop, so we do have project work that's less policy based around drug use and substance abuse. So COSAP is one of our projects that we work on. I do not work on it directly, but I've dropped the webpage for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Well, Dana and Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to talk through with so much depth and detail about both your work as well as the larger scope of IACP. I found it really useful, and I've certainly learned more than I'll admit that I was expecting. So that's always a good sign for for someone who's been working in this space for a hot minute. I don't know that there are any other questions or concerns from the group. I don't see any other hands raised or contemplative faces. So I may pause or bring this session to a close and just say for the our fellows that we will reconvene on Tuesday at 12 o'clock Eastern time, where we'll be hearing from Megan Camello and Michael Planty from RTI, and they'll be discussing measuring community sentiment and perceptions of safety and law enforcement performance. So as mentioned earlier, definitely some linkages to the monitoring and evaluation component that we talked to earlier. Dana, Jennifer, thank you again. I apologize that this wasn't more heartily attended, but know that the recording will be made available to the rest of our cohort and will no doubt be of value to them in shaping both their research assignment as well as their larger understanding of these issues. So thank you so much for taking the time. Be well, be safe, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
You as well. Thank you for